I have yet to meet a leader who desires to have an unhealthy team or an unhealthy organization, and yet many leaders I know are struggling with just that. But did you know there are a couple of things you can do to put and keep your team on the pathway to health? And that's what we're talking about today on the Grow Leader podcast. Before we get started, we want to say a huge thank you to the generous partners who help make the Grow Leader podcast happen. The first is Compassion International. Compassion International has been working to serve the world's most vulnerable children in the name of Jesus for over 70 years. They've currently helped over 2.2 million children, and they reach and serve every child and every family through the local church. Now, to learn more about how you can be a part of what Compassion is doing, visit them at compassion.com. We also want to say a huge thank you to the GAC Family Network. If you're looking for entertainment programming that celebrates the values of faith, traditional family values, and country, then you need to go to gacfamily.com to learn more about where you can stream and watch their content. And finally, we want to say a big thank you to the Wesleyan Investment Foundation. They've been with us since episode 1. We're so grateful for them. For over 80 years, WIF has been helping churches and church planners with their borrowing and their investing needs. Maybe you're a pastor dreaming about how you're going to fund a new building project or other area of opportunity, or you might be at a place where you're trying to decide how to wisely invest and steward resources that you currently have. We really think the team at WIF can help you, and you can learn more about them at wifonline.com. Well, welcome everybody to the Grow Leader podcast, where we grow leaders that grow churches by helping them reach their full potential. My name is Matt Miner, and with me as always is Pastor Chris Hodges, PC.
How are you doing, Matt?
I'm great. It's fall. I'm excited about this time of the year.
I know. I don't have much of a sweater on, but I've got a little bit of a sweater on, and I love it. I'm a sweater wearer. I mean, you can cover up a lot of things with a sweater.
Well, we have to seize our days in the deep south because it's probably only about 8 degrees cooler than it was a month and a half, 2 months ago.
But we're making the most of it.
That's right, but we're making the most of it. Super excited about this time of year, the episode today, but I'm also excited because we're just a couple of weeks away from going live with conference registration for the Grow Leader Conference coming up in July.
Right, so if anybody knows anything about the registration process for the Grow Conference, and that is for the past 10 years, it has sold out in less than half a day.
It's fast.
So now everybody wants to know what is going to be the day that the registration process goes online, and that day is, you're the first to know it actually,
this
right?
This is great, yeah.
Yeah, this is really like big news.
This is big news.
November 1st, Tuesday, November 1st, we'll go live with the registration process. And there's a limit to how many you can bring from every church, so we can make room for a lot of churches. But this year, we will have the capacity of 3,700 pastors and leaders. And so, yeah, if you're interested in coming to the Grow Conference, be sure to check out our social media. Go ahead and start following Grow Leader on Instagram, and then you'll see us kind of warming up to the announcement of the release and even the exact time. We had one year, Matt, where it actually sold out in 30 minutes.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. Who would have ever thought?
So 3,700 opportunities to be here in Birmingham at the Grants Mill, and then this year back at the Grandview, the remodeled Grandview campus.
I can't wait. In fact, I wish people would actually register for the Grandview location of the conference because they can see the beautiful Highlands College facility, and it is a newly renovated, really state-of-the-art, I like to call it world-class facility here at the Grandview location, where we are right now.
Right now, we're still broadcasting. It's the second episode that we've done here on the second floor of the Highlands College campus. Super excited about the episode today. Don't forget, as always, any notes. If you hear something in the episode today and you're like, man, I wish I would have gotten that, check out the show notes. We'll have it there. And for all dates of anything Grow related, go to growleader.com and you can find out about the calendar dates there. Let's jump into our topic. I'm super excited about the past couple of months. We've gone more almost ministerial for us as leaders.
Yeah.
And last month's episode, incredible, knowing the season and what we should do about it as leaders. Today, we're going to jump into a topic that you talk about all the time, especially with our staff team, and that's just about how we can be better as an organization by way of health.
And let me just go ahead and add, too, Matt, that we are adding some bonus content throughout the month. Not every month, we can't promise it right now, but as I have friends and leaders come through, we are going to be adding in the middle of the month a bonus podcast of interviews, basically all interview style. Yeah, if you know anything about how I see building healthy churches, I really teach 6 things. I teach having clear, measurable vision. And I spend the entire first night of the Grow Conference talking about really not even our vision, it's God's vision for his church. And I try to make the case that in some way we need to reach lost people, we need to pastor those lost people, we need to disciple them, and then mobilize the church. Of course, we say it here, know God, find freedom, discover purpose, make a difference. Once you have a clear, measurable vision, then you have to have some type of a system in order to pull it off. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but mostly about this third one, and that is, none of it matters if you don't have the people to pull it off. Right. So the building of team is huge, and we get a lot of requests. Probably the most requested topic to Grow Leader is about building, help me build my staff team, help me build my volunteer team, help me build my legacy team. You know, give me leadership lessons where I can see them mature, work ethic, all of those types of things. So we are actually preparing a lot of content around this just based on the requests. And be sure to always let us know the topics that you'd like for us to cover in these. But then the fourth area, which we're going to talk about this a little bit today, and that is the culture or the values. And culture leaks and values leak, so you have to stay on it. And so once they know it, they only know it for a while. You have to remind them of it. We'll talk a little bit about that. The fifth area would be finances, and the sixth area would be what I just simply call the God factor.
Right.
So you can get all those first five things right, but if you don't really have the presence of God there, I call it a presence-driven church. You know, we are a purpose-driven church, to use Pastor Rick Warren's term, but we're also presence-driven. Purpose without presence is just man-made. Right. So we talk a lot about, you know, the importance of prayer and fasting and seeking God and having a worship culture, etc. But really healthy organizations, when it comes to team and culture, healthy organizations have two things. They have competency and they have health. And I define competent as they know what to do, how to do it, and how to do it well. So it's competency. So when you're training your teams, there's a lot of discussion, and a lot of your leadership to your teams needs to be around, here's how to do it. In fact, after this podcast recording tonight, I'm meeting with 350 members of all of our worship teams, all full-time and part-time people, anybody involved in the worship culture. I'm having a meeting with them tonight just to talk about how to do what we do better and well, and they really want to hear some values. They've submitted more than 20 questions that they want me to answer based on how do we choose song lists, etc. All kinds of questions around that. But that goes back to to build a healthy organization or a great organization, a successful one, there has to be a level of competency, knowing what to do, how to do it, and how to do it well. But they not only need to be competent, but they need to be healthy. And healthy comes from the values and the cultures and the well-being of the team. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, because over the years, Matt, what I've done is I have been a student of healthy organizations, both from books and just going and visiting organizations, not just churches, and learning and really mining the values that make that organization tick. One of my favorite studies, by the way, was of the Ramsey organization. Right. I've gotten to know Dave Ramsey, but they have an incredible culture. So I actually asked them when I was there, hey, can I have all of your culture values, any teaching you've done on it? But I've done that for more than 24 different churches and organizations. And over the years, I've kind of edited them and morphed them into the cultures that we have to build this list of values that you know very well, because you play this role with me, with our whole staff. Right. And that is, we talk values all the time.
Let me go back to, before we jump into the list of the healthy markers that we're looking for in a staff team. I remember my first week or two on staff at Highland, so 11 years ago, and I started asking people, hey, how long have you been on the team? And never heard much of 1 or 2 years. I heard 8 years, 9 years. I was here from the start. When you were back in that period of the Highlands journey, starting out, what did you focus more on? Were you looking more for competency in people you were bringing on the team, or were you looking for just a spirit, just a health factor in those people?
Well, a little bit of both, but honestly, I was looking for something even that I think is greater than that we had shared vision, and then that we really had a divine flow relationship with. Right. So there's a lot of people that I just met that I thought, I need to know this person the rest of my life, and I'll do just pretty much anything to keep them. And I took a risk on younger people. So a lot of the people that are even elders in our church today were, young 20-somethings. John Larson, when he came to our church from the very beginning, was 19 years old. Well, he's on our senior team now at 40-something years old, right? So I took a risk on younger people because I knew they would be a bit more moldable. We could actually kind of grow this thing together and discover it together. Then rather than trying to change someone who already had a set of values that were different from mine. And so that's the way I did it. But at the heart of it, Matt, it was really, do you have the right spirit? And the right spirit means toward God, toward the vision the church has, and then toward me.
Right.
Like, I wanted to be with them. In fact, I remember making a promise that I would never hire anybody that I wanted to avoid on my day off.
That's a word right there for somebody.
It really is, because there's nothing worse than they're good at what they do, but you just don't like them. You don't want to be around them. And so I wanted to do life with people that I would go on vacation with. And I remember the first time meeting you, that you had a skill set in the area of video and editing and those types of things. You're a creative genius, actually. People don't even really know how much of a creative genius you are. We ought to talk about that sometime on the podcast. But I liked you from day one, too, and because you bring humor and life. It's one of the values we'll talk about to every environment. And now today, of course, you're a campus pastor, and you even helped me lead the entire staff in the area of vision and values. And so anyway, it's very important.
You can't undersell or undervalue the divine flow piece. I think that matters so much.
It really does.
No matter what size the team, if you're the senior leader or an associate, it's easier to lead people you love and that you want to be with.
And to take a minute to unpack that teaching, this wasn't in our notes, but let's just follow this trail for a second. The word divine flow actually came from Joel Osteen's father. He actually wrote a little booklet, decades ago, called The Divine Flow, and here's the thesis of the booklet, and that is that God builds his kingdom relationally. So how God builds it is he's causing people to be divinely drawn to each other relationally for the sake of kingdom work. And so that God will put these people in your life, that he's a generational God. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he even thinks family, he thinks connection, he thinks lineage. And so if you'll start looking for people that you're divinely connected to, you don't know why you like them so much, but you really do, there's probably a kingdom purpose in the two of you coming together. So bottom line is, I have spent my entire almost 40-year ministry career just forging relationships and building team with people that I deeply love.
And it's so much a part of the DNA of the church planning organization we're involved with the Association of Related Churches. It's part of Grow, and it's definitely a part of the Highland staff.
Exactly. You want to get through the list now?
Here we go.
So years ago, we started putting these together, and I wondered if I should even tell them how many we have, because we're not going to be able to cover them all. So we may just be dangling a little carrot out there for those who say, I have to have a completed list.
It's a great part, too, later on.
Might be the case. But there are 12, and I'm sure we can't get through all of them today. And again, these are inspired by a lot of different companies, churches. So you might have even heard some of these. Hey, wait a minute, I heard that somewhere else. Yeah, so that's another value I have, by the way, and that is everybody can teach me something. Everybody.
Yeah.
And so when I even go to a church, regardless of how big or small the church is, I'm looking for something that they do better than us for now. Because if they do something better, I'm going to learn it, improve it, and they'll come back and learn from me the very thing they taught me. So that's a value we have. It's not on our list here, but that was worth the price of admission as well.
Be a learner. Don't stop learning.
Exactly. And honestly, I call it best practices. There's every organization and church has something they do extremely well. Go find it. And I could take you through Highlands and show you all of the places that the things people would say we do well, and I'll say, well, let me tell you where I learned that.
That's great.
And it's from a variety of places. All right, here's number one. And we'll include these in the show notes, and that is that we don't have a job. And by the way, they all begin with we. We don't have a job. We're on a mission. And I think one of the healthiest things that a staff team can embrace, and one that we are constantly reminding ourselves of, is that we're called to do this, not just paid to do this. We are not hirelings. We're family. We are sons and daughters in a house that God called us to. We're part of this incredible mission and calling. There's a verse out of 2 Peter that I deeply love, and I've been teaching it a lot this year, where it says, for brothers and sisters, to make every effort to make your calling and your election sure. And it's the word ekloge in the Greek, calling, and it's the thing that God specifically assigned you to do, and he gifted you to do it and then resourced you to do it, and he didn't do it for others. It actually, all that's in that definition of the word, if you go study it in any one of the Hebrew or Greek dictionaries. And it simply means is that we're not just picking a job. We're not like, oh, they gave me the best opportunity, or hey, they pay the best. No. We're called to do this. And the Bible goes on and says that if you'll make every effort to make your calling and your election sure, if you'll do this, you'll never stumble. And there's very few places in the Bible that can give you that guarantee. You'll never stumble if you know why you're on the planet, if you've made your calling sure. So I think it's something that's incredibly important, but not only the calling, but the fact that we're on a mission. And sometimes you can get busy doing your job. You forget that we are crusaders doing work that matters. Like, lives are literally hanging in the balance of how well we run sound, how well we sing this song, how well we open those doors, how well we air condition rooms, how well we, whatever. That this isn't about, oh, I unlock the doors or I play a guitar. No, we are crusaders doing work that matters. And I think this kind of vision, especially in people that aren't directly delivering the message, like I get to directly deliver the message. I get to see hands go up of people receiving Jesus. So it's really pretty easy for a person like me to stay connected to the missional and the vision side of this thing we call ministry. But those who aren't doing it directly need to be reminded, you are too.
Yeah, the way to reinforce that we found is, you just have to tell a lot of stories. And I wish people could get a peek into the campus pastor text thread on a Sunday, or even the particular teams. Everybody's got a text thread going, and so many of those conversations on a Sunday or during the week are about somebody who needs healing, somebody who was healed, about somebody who invited their brother to church. That I'm thinking about stories just from this past Sunday. You have to tell the stories of what matters, and not just, hey, is the room clean? No, here's the reason why the room needs to be clean, because Jacob's inviting his brother to church for the first time this Sunday, and really getting back to the human. It's all about the one person moment of what we do.
Yeah, so those of you that are listening, even if you're a parent or a business owner or you work for someone, the understanding of the why of what we do is something that has to be reinforced, and you're exactly right. You do it best through telling the stories of lives that are changed through whatever that you do. Here's the second one. I like this one as well. It's a little bit connected to this first one, but it just kind of unpacks it a little more deeply, and that is, we are family, not employees. That we are family. We're not servants, we're sons and daughters. And that's a big difference. We even have a teaching that, Matt, we probably should throw into the mix of this podcast, and that is the difference between a son and daughter and a servant.
Right.
The sons versus servants teaching that we've been teaching for 21 years now. Because what it does, it creates this kind of more of an ownership mentality that I'm convinced people need to have. One of the things that I think we do well here is in our membership class, I tell them at the end of the class, now, if you become a member and I become your pastor, then this is your church. So these are your chairs. Those are your drums. This is your foyer. And it kind of gets in people's mind, wait a minute, this is my house. And so they begin to take care for it and take responsibility for it like their own place.
Can you talk a little bit about, because we even say the term dream team, and I think a lot of times we lose sight of what that really means. And we think the dream team is just a group of volunteers that are here to pull off church on a Sunday. But some of the more impactful ministry initiatives we do as a church came from that empowerment of saying, hey, this is your place. How are you seeing it? What's God put in your heart? How can we come around it?
Well, it actually was a correction to something I didn't like in church, and that was that a pastor had a vision, and then he recruited a bunch of people to help him accomplish his vision or her vision, which is fine, but I don't think that's how God does it. I think every function of the body of Christ likes doing their function and has vision for their function. And so I was convinced that the church was supposed to look like the people God had sent us.
That's great.
And I was convinced that the best ideas of the church were going to come from the people God sent us, and that I would miss things that we were supposed to do because I never discovered the dream and vision that God had put in the people that God sent me. And case in point would be our Dream Center and Christ Health Center. I didn't really have a vision to do medical care for 35,000 people a year in one of the most impoverished areas of Birmingham. I didn't have a vision for that. A doctor in our church came up to me one Sunday and said, I went to medical school to be a pastor. Well, I said, you went to medical school to be a pastor? Explain that to me. He goes, I think I'm supposed to use medicine to help hurting people and to spread the gospel. And 20 years later, we have this clinic that helps a lot of people. But the point is that once you give people that ownership mentality, where they're not employees of you and your vision, man, they have the freedom, like you said, to be empowered. It really makes a huge difference. And it's one of the values that I think needs to be taught to our teams. The third one is I love this one a ton, and that is that we guard the vision, but we challenge the process. In other words, we stick by our principles as we challenge our traditions. And what that one's all about, literally, is that what we are going to do is not up for debate. So we are going to win lost people to Jesus. We are going to pastor people. We are going to disciple people. We are going to mobilize them. Now, how we do it, that's up for debate. Because what that value does is it encourages people to come up with a better way. And leaders, what we have to do is we have to make sure that they feel the freedom to say, you know what, PC, I think I've got a better idea. Not of what we're going to do. They can't say, you know what, I think we ought to stop spreading the gospel. That's not up for debate. The vision is never up for debate, but the process can be challenged, and we encourage that.
We had a meeting this morning talking about our Spanish service. We have a Spanish service in the afternoons on Sundays, and how we were kind of, we're realigning some things in that service. And the thing that we celebrate on the team that I'm on is task conflict. There's no place for relational conflict. That's got to be handled outside of the room. But if no one's saying, hey, I think I have a better way, that's probably not the best environment to be in. And you've done such a great job of leading us in a way where there's a lot of freedom to come up with new ideas, but also a lot of responsibility to own and be solution-oriented in everything. So we don't allow, hey, I don't like this. If you're okay with hearing, hey, I don't like the way we're doing this, but you want to hear, but here's the way I'm thinking we could do it. Being solution-oriented.
Yes. So I say always bring a problem with a potential solution. Right. And what it does, it gets them thinking positively, even though the original thought was a negative. So they thought, wow, this isn't working. I don't want you to just come tell me everything that's not working. I want you to go ahead and start thinking about a possible solution. But another thing that leaders who are listening to me, of any organization, again, this works in family, business, or church, any place you want to use it, and that is leaders have a tendency to solve the problem before they even get to their own meeting. And so then they have a meeting where they just bark out all the orders of the things they've already solved. So it takes leaders, especially type A, ready to get it done leaders, and I consider myself kind of like that a lot, that I have disciplined myself to what I call lead with questions. And these are questions that I already think I know the answer to, but I leave room to not answer it too fast. And what it does is it allows for creativity. It allows for people to come into the room with hey, I think I have an idea. So all the time, I discipline myself to come into a meeting and saying, hey, here's what I'd love for us to solve. How do we do it? And I think I already know, but I don't answer it. And honestly, a lot of times they actually do come up with better things than I had in my own head. Good thing I didn't, because the moment I say, here's what I want to accomplish and here's what I think we should do, you actually squelch the ideas of different people in the room.
In our creative meetings that we've been in, I can think of 1,000 times where you're walking in and you say, I think for this next series, and I know you know what you want to call it, and you know where you want to go on it, but you'll say, I think for this next series, here's what I want to talk about. What do you guys think? And then somebody will say an idea, and your response generally is, tell me more about that. What else? Add to that. And it starts this whole conversation in the creative meeting of everybody kind of playing idea tennis. There's these ideas floating around, and we may not use the idea that is originally said, but we'll get to the solution because there's that kind of freedom in that environment.
And honestly, I'm being very honest. My idea was not the best. Over 21 years of this church, the best idea has won, and the best ideas usually weren't in my head. Here's the fourth one, so we can get through this. We only have a few more minutes of today's podcast. We'll get through as many of these 12 as we can. But the fourth one is that we believe character matters all of the time. And this comes from the belief that comes out of a verse out of the Old Testament that says, if the enemy is going to try to mess with the whole church, and of course the metaphor of the church are the sheep, the verse goes like this: strike the shepherd to scatter the sheep. So he doesn't strike the sheep to scatter the sheep. He knows that really, if he can just mess up one key person in the organization, strike the shepherd, he can scatter the sheep. And that's us, which means, according to that scripture, we are the target. We are the main target of the enemy to try to come against us. And 2 Corinthians says we shouldn't be unaware of his schemes. And so we have to be reminded regularly to fiercely guard our integrity. And I do that, honestly, Matt, with the understanding that I know that they probably have struggled with it. I don't have this naive, idealistic view that my staff is just impeccably perfect. I'll almost even make the assumption that they're struggling somewhere. And I'm saying, look, I know you are, but I need you to repent of it. I need you to talk to someone. We got to get this together because how we live our lives impacts thousands and thousands of people. And of course, it begins with me. So to do that, you have to create an environment, leaders that are listening to me. You have to create an environment where honesty and restoration is made attractive. And I know the world just has little toleration for imperfection, and they'll cancel you in a New York second, but that's not healthy. You have to create an environment where, listen to me, I know you're struggling, talk to somebody. It doesn't even have to be me, but confess this to somebody, deal with this with somebody. And what I'm trying to do is catch it earlier before it really becomes something that is catastrophic in some kind of way. And I personally believe that we should even have an environment and a culture that if they are repentant and if they have a humble and a pure heart and just made a mistake, that we have a culture that even gives people a second chance. And what that does, in my opinion, it makes character attractive because you haven't made it this impossible target for me to hit. You made it attractive. But at the same time, we recognize that really as a priest, as a minister of the Lord, that we have to guard our character and guard what our eyes see and guard what our ears hear. And like all things, it has to be reminded.
In that environment of honesty, I think connects so much to, honestly, the last two, the ability to say, hey, here's an idea I have, and then the ability to know you're in an environment to confess something and it be okay. It's okay not to be okay. It's something we've said for a while around here. And you've even put a person in place on our staff team. Pastor Steve Blair there's a point person to say, hey, if you have something you need help with, this is a great person to go to if you can't find anyone else. But that adds into the atmosphere of we're a family, not just a staff, not just employees. Because if it was just an employee environment, you wouldn't have that at all.
Exactly. And the fifth one is actually the opposite of it. Now, the fifth value that we remind our team about is when they don't see something in themselves, they actually see something in me or in the organization that they don't like. And that's going to happen. If you work anywhere, you're going to see something in the leadership or in the organization that you just don't like. You don't like the way it's being done, or at least your understanding of it has you miffed in some kind of way. So we call it, there's a negative. There's something that you see that you consider a negative, and here's how the value goes, and that is we pass negatives up and positives down. So if you see something you don't like, it's okay for you to see something you don't like. What's not okay is to send that negative to the wrong place. And now this one's good. Honestly, pastors, leaders, if you don't get anything else out of today's podcast, this one works. Again, in every environment, in family, because any time you have something you don't like and you're sending it in a lateral direction or worse to someone that you're over, that's not constructive anymore. That's called gossip. Because first of all, they can't do anything about it, and now you're putting a toxic culture into that environment. So again, it's okay to be negative about something or see something that you don't like, but you have to send it to somebody who can do something about it. So we call it passing negatives up and positive down. And it's just a principle that praise goes down, negativity goes up, and we have at Highlands a no gossip, really a no tolerance for gossip policy. And we will warn one time, maybe twice, but there's very little toleration for anybody who puts a toxic negative into the organization, into someone's ears who could do nothing about it. So again, you're allowed to have it, you're just not allowed to talk about it. Because this organization supports you, you need to support the organization.
It's a great relief valve because people are going to have a bad attitude about something every once in a while, or not even a bad attitude, but a negative opinion about something. But to have a space you can go to and have that kind of relational leadership to your leader helps out a whole lot.
And I even say it, look, I'm okay with you not liking something I did and some decision I made, some direction I'm sending the church in. You better send it to the right direction, though. I don't mind it. And so talk to somebody who's over you. They'll come talk to me. And I think it's just a value that has to be reminded all the time. Can we just throw one more in 1 minute?
I was hoping we'd get to this one.
Because that'll be 6, and maybe we'll do the other 6 in another podcast. But the 6th value is we strive to be simply excellent. And the word simply is important, by the way. That the key to excellence is in the simplicity, that we don't try to do everything in the world and then try to do it well. We try to find the few things that are really important and realizing that, that it's easier. I liken it to like a restaurant. It's easier to cook fewer items extremely well than to be this buffet place that has tacos, spaghetti, steaks, everything. It'll all be okay, but nothing of it will be great.
Right.
I heard one church say we are a Ruth's Chris, not a hometown buffet, and that's what we're talking about here. That finding out what you do well, and really be excellent at it.
I want to ask you one question.
All right.
Maybe a minute over here.
Okay.
But for the pastor, the leader, the parent who's listening and thinks, man, I'm in a really kind of not healthy environment. Where do they start? Where's the place where they should lean in first, based on the things that we've talked about, to really start to get the health of the organization? Because I believe this, and you would say this, the health of the organization can change. It's all about leadership. There is hope.
Yeah, so if you're the leader of the organization or the family or the business, whatever, it's defining these. You can't follow something that you haven't defined.
Right.
So we took the time, I've taken years to compile this list of values, and then we take every single month and say it. And then even every morning, I begin my day looking at my daily declaration of who I am in Christ, what kind of person I want to be. So it begins with defining it and then realizing that values and vision leaks. And so nothing stays where you left it. So you have to have some mechanism in place where you can remind yourself of it, and that's what we hope to do today with the podcast.
We're going to have to do a part 2 on the other. There's 6 more, and so we'll leave you guys waiting for those, and we'll get those to you in the near future. Thank you so much. Appreciate you so much. Always fun as always. Hey, don't forget to check out any dates, any information you need about Grow Leader at growleader.com. And we want to say thank you once again to our partners who helped make this podcast happen. And then if you liked what you heard today, someone that it would benefit, like it, share it. Let's get the word out there.
Yeah, please help us out there.
And we'll see you next month on the Grow Leader podcast.